This is the Social Factor.
Good evening, everybody. It is Sunday, April 15th, 2018. The Social Factor is live. We have David and I. David's on the phone.
And I'm here.
Hi, guys.
Stephanie, Stephanie's here too. David is on the phone because we are currently dealing with a blizzard up here in Wisconsin, and
it shut pretty much everything down. There's pretty much nothing open today.
Exactly, everything is shut down. There's like 2 feet of snow out there, and the plows haven't gone through yet for obvious reasons because they're waiting for this whole thing to be over so that they can actually, so that they don't go out and do their thing and then 2 hours later, hey, let's go back out and do the exact same thing. So
correct. I want to make a comment. I've been here for going on 23 years now, and when I first arrived, there was this pretty bad, storm that we in the Marinette area, and I've never seen anything like this.
right.
I think
I've been here for going on 23 years now.
Yeah. You there, David?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
What was that sound?
Oh, I was just making sure the audio was coming through the live thing because I'm right now. I am using the same microphone for multiple programs on my computer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just making sure we can hear you.
I'm just making sure that it's compatible to every program can use it at the same exact time. I'm just making sure.
Okay. Okay. So are we okay to talk?
Oh yeah,
we're good.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, so anyway, David is going to be with us through phone today. The studio is actually at Steph and I's house, so that's why we're able to be here. But David lives on the other side of town. We both live pretty much in the same area, but he lives on the other side of town. So this is basically how we're going to do it today. Real quick, I just want to make a quick plug, and then David has some things to talk about last episode. That was American education. First off, you like us on Facebook at www, or I don't know why I need to say www.
You don't.
Yeah. You can like us on facebook.com / The Social Factor Podcast. And anyway, you can also call into today's show because bullying is a very controversial topic, and you can call in to voice your opinion, to talk about an experience you may have had. You can do that by calling 414-949-5778. The phone lines are open, so just call anytime. And now, before we get into today's topic, David is just going to quickly just reiterate a little bit on last week's topic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Josh. Basically, last week we discussed, kind of the U.S. schools they operate now. And the question of Common Core came up by Josh. Or either one, Stephanie or Josh. I can't quite remember.
It was Josh.
The episode.
Oh, yep, I did that, yeah.
Who was it?
I did.
Yes, correct. Josh commented that it was a way of learning, like mathematics and stuff. And I kind of belted in and said, no, it's not, blah, blah, blah. It was more of a way of controlling, the situation in school. Guess what? I was incorrect. I was way off the charts. Josh, you were absolutely correct. It kind of bothered me. I like to give proper information, and unfortunately, there was a link out there regarding Common Core schooling, and I know the Obama administration was very big, and I would consider after everything I read about it after the show. I realized to make that announcement, I need to make that correction. Josh, you are absolutely correct.
So
it is a system to get us Americans back on top of the math, the sciences, and the literary arts.
Okay.
And so you are absolutely correct, and I stand corrected.
Awesome. Topic, like I said, bullying. Now, David, you said that there's all different kinds of bullying. So I guess let's start on the whole thing about the bullying that exists today.
Certainly. In 2014, the CDC, or Center for Disease Control and the Department of Education released the first federal uniform definition of bullying surveillance. Now, the core elements of the definition include unwanted aggressive behavior, observed or perceived power imbalances, and repetition of behavior or high likelihood of repetition. So, there are different modes as well, but these are the general of how people would observe bullying, okay? There are two modes in which youth can be bullied or can bully others. These studies and these categories, or the identification of bullying, put it to two different categories: as the one that are weak and the one that are doing the bullying. Okay, yeah. And there's a lot more to it. The two most, the first one includes direct bullying that occurs in the presence of targeted youth, and indirect. E.g. bullying directly communicated to targeted youth, such as spreading rumors. One form is you can discredit a person. You can make stuff up, to hurt them. So that one is a type of bullying. In addition to these two modes, the four types of bullying include the broad categories of physical, verbal, this one I have a hard time with, relational, e.g. efforts to harm the reputation or relationship of the targeted youth, and damage to property. Okay? Now, I can relate to a few of those, and Josh, I'm sure you can relate to quite a few of those.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What I ended up also, beyond that, you have your physical, your verbal, and then the retaliation aspect of it. The damage to property actually relates more to the cyberbullying. Such as destruction of memory or data that the person had, like hacking into their system, harassing them via Facebook or Snapchat or all these different areas. These are the tools that can be used to harm another person.
Right.
The physical, of course, is violence, right? And the verbal is, and sometimes I don't know which one is worse, the verbal or the physical,
Right,
verbal tends to leave more scars mentally, and the relational or the relational it supersedes all the other ones because now your reputation is destroyed with a lot of your colleagues or your classmates, and so on and so forth. All right, so there are obvious factors, involved in the aftermath of being bullied.
Right.
And unfortunately, go into adulthood and sometimes never leave. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the results, of course, is depression and anxiety. But what I found very interesting in another study that I read that I unfortunately wasn't able to save is that not only are the individuals that are affected, meaning the ones that are bullied, having these symptoms, but then in a study which was started in the 1960s in Finland and in Norway, it actually showed that the people that are bulliers, the ones that bully other kids, are also affected by this act.
Okay.
Now, Josh, you and I was never bullied in Germany because if I pushed someone, I didn't know. Okay.
Right.
In America, however, there are these regulations within the school system where anyone can say anything to you.
Yeah.
Especially if the teacher isn't around. Okay. But the moment, let's say a guy like me who just had enough. Okay, and I got into a fist fight with this person, I end up being the one in trouble, even though this person may have bullied me for 6 months or even a year or maybe 2 school years, okay? So unfortunately, sometimes the victim becomes the perpetrator.
Yeah.
In the school system.
And that really teaches those kids that it's wrong to defend yourself and you're just supposed to sit there and deal with it.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. It sort of reaffirms the negative aspect of a bully, okay? And the person, and we could go on to, school shootings, that there are many incidences where school shootings were caused by someone that was bullied, okay? But that's a whole different category, okay? That's like the most extreme you can get in retaliation to bullying and whatever other reasons there were for that individual to be in the school and do that, okay? And by no means am I trying to defend them. But at the same token, I can understand those that were bullied, the feeling they may have had, of wanting to retaliate against the people that hurt them so much. Okay.
Right.
And Stephanie, you're absolutely correct. It's a very, very negative, positive negative, meaning or a passive way of actually spreading the bullier.
Right. Exactly.
So, as I said, there was the one study I was talking about, it got really in-depth with the ratios. And what I found very interesting is, number one, males are more often subjected to bullying than females in schools. However,
that surprises me.
Yeah.
However, when girls are subjected to it, the impact is much worse than on most males.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so even though the spectrum is much larger for males, meaning another male is going after another weaker male, per se, or just a person that's different, the subjugation to a female is more traumatizing. Okay? According to this study, and they said there was like 0.6% of females that were bulliers. Okay. As compared to, at one point there was a study that showed 55% of males going into school, meaning young males, are bullied. 55%.
Are bullied or bully?
They're actually bullied.
Okay.
23.6% did the bullying.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. So, the majority is that most kids are, especially males, are bullied. So, again, side effects of being a victim of bullying. I think I'm going to let you take this one, Josh, because you can talk from your own personal experience.
Yeah, right. Well, side effects, I actually have statistics up on here that I can talk about. So, basically, students... Wow, a huge chunk of snow just fell off of our roof.
You're distracted.
Sorry. I heard a big boom, and all of a sudden I just saw a bunch of snow fall off the roof. But anyway, okay.
No, Josh, it was an avalanche.
Avalanche.
Obviously.
Yeah. Okay, so students who experience bullying, they're at an increased risk for poor school adjustment, sleep difficulties, anxiety, and depression. And that's actually from the Center of Disease Control, that statistic. Students who are both targets of bullying and engage in bullying behavior are at greater risk for both mental health and behavior problems than students who only bully or are only bullied.
Correct, and that's funny because at one point you're describing the study that I actually read about. You had just a victim, and then you have victim and bully, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Okay. And ironically, this is where I found it very interesting: is people that actually bully are kind of in the same category.
Right.
Mentally, yeah, but they tend to have more antisocial exhibitions. They show more antisocial behaviors versus the ones that are just purely bullied.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then it's that bullied students indicate that bullying has a negative effect on how they feel about themselves. That's 19%. Their relationships with friends and family, and on their schoolwork, which is at 14%, and physical health, which is at 9%, and that's from the National Center for Educational Statistics.
Correct.
And then students who experience bullying are twice as likely as non-bullied peers to experience negative health effects such as headaches and stomach aches.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that includes the nervousness aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
Interesting.
Yep. And then youth who self-blame and conclude they deserve to be bullied are more likely to face negative outcomes such as depression, prolonged victimization, and maladjustment.
Maladjustment, yep. Almost like that falls under the disassociative aspect of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of those people would fall under that category.
Yeah. And then we have, let's see, we have, as far as like bullying statistics, more than 1 out of every 5, which is about 20.8% of students report being bullied in their lifetime.
Yep.
The federal government began collecting data on school bullying in 2005 when the prevalence of bullying was around roughly 28%.
Now listen, this is, in the United States alone, we have over 100,000 schools. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
There's 100,000 schools, okay?
Yeah.
Take that, up to 25 to 28%, and look at the ratio then. It's staggering.
Right, exactly.
I heard someone on the media say it's an epidemic, quite honestly.
Right, yeah. And then rates of bullying vary across studies, from about 9% to 98%. A meta-analysis of 80 studies analyzing bullying involvement rates for both bullying others and others and being bullied, for 12 to 18-year-old students, reported a mean prevalence rate of about 35% for traditional bullying involvement and 15% for cyberbullying involvement.
Correct. One thing, though, I want to make this very clear. In some of the studies,
Hey,
they
David.
didn't have quite the categories they needed.
Yeah.
Okay, they didn't have the proper categories. So if there was one incident, let's say a fight between one peer and another, at one point that was listed as bullying. Okay.
Right.
Or a verbal disagreement with another student. That was categorized as bullying, but that's not bullying. It's a repeat pattern.
Right.
So I'll let it go right back to you then.
Hey, David, I'm going to quickly call you on Facebook because I don't know if we're getting a clear enough audio from you.
Okay.
All right, 1 second here.
I know you've been messing with that thing.
Yeah. I just want to get a clear, because it's a little fogged out. That's why.
Okay.
Are you calling him?
Yep.
Did you hang up?
I did.
You should have told him you were hanging up. Josh.
Everybody.
Josh. Sound quality.
I was unhappy with the sound. There we go.
All right, and I'm back.
Ah, much better.
Oh, we should have done this from the beginning, my friend.
Probably,
Maybe
yeah.
we should have tested this before we did this live, huh?
Yeah, that's my bad.
Oh my God, I can hear you guys so much better now.
Really?
All right, so let's apologize to the audience. We apologize, people.
I
Yeah.
apologize for being unprepared.
Well, I didn't realize how better the quality would be.
Well, I guess it makes sense if everything's not using the same microphone.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, plus, the way you guys sound right now, there's no interference. Where earlier, it's like I'd say something and there was a delay.
Oh, wow.
Like a clicking delay. And so I was just trying to deal with it as best I could,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shall I continue with bullying statistics?
Please.
Right.
I mean, I just wanted to say something in regards to the fact that some studies showed that even a single incident was considered bullying when, and this study actually went back and says, no, it's not. It has to be a pattern involved in it.
Right. So 33% of students who reported being bullied at school indicated that they were bullied at least once or twice a month during the school year. And of those students who reported being bullied, 13% were made fun of, called names, or insulted, 12% were the subject of rumors, and 5% were pushed, shoved, tripped, or spit on, and 5% were excluded from activities on purpose. And a slightly higher portion of female than of male students reported being bullied at school, which was roughly 23% versus 19%. In contrast, a higher percentage of male than of female students report being physically bullied, and that's a difference of 6% and 4%, and also threatened with harm, with a difference of 5% and 3%. This is all from the National Center for Educational Statistics. And bullied students reported that bullying occurred in the following places. It would be like the hallway, stairwell. That was about 42%. Excuse me. Inside the classroom, which was at 34%. In the cafeteria, which was at 22%. Outside on school grounds, which was 19%. And on the school bus was 10%, and in the bathroom or locker room was the lowest at 9%. 43% of bullied students report notifying an adult at school about the incident, and students who report higher rates of bullying victimization are more likely to report the bullying. More than half of bullying situations, which is about 57%, stop when a peer intervenes on behalf of the student being bullied. School-based bullying...
Yes.
Yep.
Definitely.
And school-based bullying prevention programs decrease bullying by up to 25%.
That's impressive.
The reasons for being bullied reported most often by students, and a lot of these are pretty obvious. Physical appearance, race and ethnicity, gender, disability, religion, sexual orientation, all that.
Okay. For the older audience, if there is any out there right now, there's another word that I think we should put out there, and the word is called hazing. Okay, are you familiar with that word?
Yep, I've seen a movie called Hazing.
Well, hazing is, if you've ever been in the military, you understand hazing. But also, if you've been on football teams in high school or even before that, and then into college, a lot of the alumni or the fraternities do hazing. And there's been a few incidences where hazing actually killed people. Okay, but hazing is another. It's a word that used to be used in the older days. Okay, but it really is bullying in a sense that you're physically and emotionally and verbally putting people in a situation where often they can't get out.
Right.
And it leaves residue of whatever shame, victimization, or so on and so forth.
Yeah. So I'm guessing we want to have a little bit of me sharing my experience in middle school, huh?
Go for it.
All right.
If you want to, my dear.
Well, usually I like to forget about it, but I mean,
You don't have to.
Oh, I will.
You can summarize, or
Yeah.
you can...
Well, that's what I did in this.
Okay.
Josh,
That's a
Josh,
very long-
you'll do yours and I'll do mine. How about
Okay.
that?
So I basically just went through my book called The Power of Hope, and I just took a few excerpts and stuff from it
Sure.
about, the specific bullying parts of my life and whatnot. So going into middle school, the only friends I had were 4 friends from elementary school, and I was nervous at first and knew that I had to make some new friends, so I tried to talk to a few people. And something was different, though. When I tried to talk to these people, they just told me to stop talking to them and walked away. So I was confused because I was wondering, did I do something wrong? Was it something I said? I didn't know. So every time I tried to talk to someone, this guy would sometimes walk up to me and say, "Don't you get it? Nobody likes you. Nobody wants to be your friend." And needless to say, I put up with it. So every day at school, one of 2 things would occur. I would either stand next to a group of people pretending to be a part of their conversation in order to make myself feel a little less pathetic, or sometimes I'd stand off to the side, away from everyone. Sometimes when I stood next to these people, they'd notice me standing there and would move away from me. And I was ashamed and embarrassed, and one day in math class we had to we had to switch desks for an activity that involved having partners. So while I sat by my partner, someone else used my desk, and after the activity, I returned to my spot, and across the top, written in ink, was the word fag. I told my teacher, and she came over to look at it, and the student that did it ended up having to clean the desk. So when the bullying started, I told my teachers about it, and they tried to stop it, but didn't work. So I remember writing a letter to the principal explaining to her everything that was happening, and she called a meeting with all the people I named in the email. She discussed with them the seriousness of the issue, and then the next year of school was even worse. A new student had showed up halfway through the year, and when I tried to talk to him, he just said, "I don't care, get away from me, I don't like you, don't talk to me." And the new kid would always try to trip me in the hall, would constantly say to me, "You're gay." And the news that I was being bullied quickly spread throughout the school, and eventually it became too severe that a letter was sent home to all the parents. And the letter had to be signed by a parent or guardian, and then returned to the school to prove if the parents were aware of the situation, and that they talked to their children about the seriousness of the situation. And after the letter got sent home, I heard rumors that some of the kids in my class refused to show the note to their parents, and some had said that their parents didn't take the note seriously. So I tried to stick up for myself, but no one was really willing to help me out, and I'd end up getting slammed against walls and lockers, and was even called names. Then on one occasion, in the boys' locker room, one of my classmates slammed the door in my face. I had even come home with my mouth bleeding one day because someone had hit me. Now I was terrified to go to school at this point, and one of my classmates actually ended up getting expelled due to their behavior towards me. So one day I reached my breaking point, and it all started when I went outside and walked toward a group of classmates. And they of course noticed me and began to walk away, so I stopped. And once the group stopped, I began walking towards them again. And I guess the group really didn't want me near them because they started walking again. So in disgust, I decided to just leave them alone and headed over to where another group of students were assembled. They didn't want to include me in the group either, so it really started to upset me, and I started to feel like crying. I walked away and just stood by myself for a while. A few kids from a group that I tried to join earlier then walked up to me and asked if I was alright. I said yes, and they walked away. And then a teacher then walked up to me and asked if I was alright. And at this point, that emotional bubble inside of me was just too much, and I pretty much just burst into tears. So that's the excerpts that I got there so far.
Well, I remember editing that portion of your book, and number one, I just, when I hear this coming out of your mouth, I really feel sad for you because of what you went through.
Yeah.
You know? And if I would have been one of the kids there at the time, I would have, because between Germany and the United States, when I went to Californian schools, if I saw someone bullied, I'd stand up for them.
Right.
I'd do my best to protect them, and often, you have these groups, these subcultures in middle school and in high school, and I unfortunately only belonged to one group.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a jock. I played football, I played basketball, but I never truly fit in with the jocks. So I was with the musical guys and the loners, and people always gave them a hard time. They gave me a hard time, and and I'm looking at your story, and you fit almost every category of what bullying is.
Right.
And the difference is you weren't able to protect yourself.
Right. Exactly.
In my story, you know where I'm from. I'm from the area of Frankfurt in Hessen, Germany. Very tough neighborhood. You have to learn how to fight. You learn hard way. Sometimes you get your butt kicked.
Right.
Other times you deliver the butt kicking. And and when I came to America, my dad says, "This isn't Germany. You can't get away with this stuff in America." So I told myself, okay, I got to behave. I can't just go up to a guy and slug him, And I really tried to stay out of trouble. My bullying started when I got into high school.
Yeah.
In elementary, when I came from Germany in 6th grade, and then went all the way through 8th grade, I was at a Catholic school, so in a way I was protected.
Yeah.
But once I got into the public system, kids were relentless. They heard my accent. At first I was unique to them, but then the boys got jealous, and they would take jabs at me. And often I didn't even know what the hell they were saying because my English wasn't exactly perfect at the time. Plus, some of the girls were interested in it because I had an accent, and so on and so forth. And it just, in football practice, they hazed me, literally hazed me. So I was very lucky. I had a really good teacher, and he was the coach for the football team, and his name was Rick Acebo. I love that man. He was our Spanish teacher.
Right.
And he observed the other guys and how they interacted with me. So one day I had the opportunity. He said, "David, get on this side," and he had the entire team line up away from me. And he says, "If one of you guys can take David down, then David will do a lap." Okay? And no matter how many people take him down, those are the amount of laps. And luckily, nobody took me down. Okay? But what he did is give me this equality, the ability to be equal to them. And all my anger came out at that moment. Okay? So Coach Acebo was an amazing human being, thank you, but not everybody's as lucky as I am. Okay? And, it got to me because sometimes I just wanted to hurt somebody for saying bad things to me.
Right.
Because here's the thing, a lot of Americans don't realize this. Words are more devastating than a punch.
Right.
Because they're everlasting. They are.
Exactly.
Seriously. At some point you forget about what happened, but you don't forget the feeling.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, while some of these guys were scared of me, physically, they thought they had the upper hand emotionally and mentally.
Right.
Because they were just daggers going into my head each time. And when you're going through, as a teen, you're going through a lot of changes. And you may have a lot of issues in the family, such as a divorce. It could be a death in the family. It could be a sibling that's in trouble. There are so many different scenarios. And then you go to school, and then you got to put up with that crap. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And as I said, that's very unfortunate. I don't know. I mean, bullying sucks. It really does. It's unfair. It's just purely wrong.
Yeah. You want to say anything?
This is just.
What? Just, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything? No?
Stephanie, you got something to add?
I don't really have any bullying stories that I remember.
Yeah, it's okay. You're lucky.
Kids were mean, but I kind of stayed to myself, so it didn't matter anyway.
Yeah. I just have one more excerpt that I wanna
sure.
Make mention of here, and then we'll finish up some statistics here. So summer came and went, and this is high school, and before I knew it, the start of my first year of high school had arrived. It wasn't all that great. I had just come from a school where I had little to no friends, so it was no surprise that I had no one to sit with at lunch or to talk to or after school, or to talk to before or after school. It was pretty much the same as before, except not as bad. On the first day of school, all the freshmen came in early for an activity that involved getting to know your classmates and the school grounds. After it was over, we had about a half hour to just hang out around the school. I spotted one of my old friends from elementary school who went to a different school during 8th grade. This isn't the kid that got expelled. And joined him and a few of his buddies while we were hanging out. One of his friends said, "Go away, nobody wants you here." I ignored him and kept hanging out. Shortly after he and his group began to walk away, so I followed them. The kid that was rude to me earlier turned around and stood in front of me, blocking my path so I couldn't follow them. "Seriously, go away, no one likes you," he said, and smirked. At that point I thought, I don't need this, and walked away. After that sucky first day of school, every morning before the bell rang consisted of me going straight to class. That's just what I did. I would go into the classroom and sit there waiting until the bell rang. Sometimes I'd talk to the teacher to pass the time. You might be asking yourself, why wouldn't I try and make some new friends, or even try and introduce myself? Well, I did that in middle school, and look what it got me. Nothing but grief. I would have gladly made new friends, but didn't want to risk repeating the middle school scenario. I had one classmate in third hour who I'd talk to sometimes. During lunch, pretty much every table had someone sitting at it, and I didn't know any of them. I didn't sit down because of my fear I developed getting picked on in middle school. So I just leaned against the wall in the commons and watched everyone else eat. About halfway through another boring lunch, I noticed one of my classmates from one of my morning classes, so I walked over to him and said hello. The kids at this table seemed really friendly, and I decided to sit down at the table next to them and join in on their conversation. These people actually included me in their conversation. This was something I wasn't used to. My joy that day was short-lived. I had gym class with the kid that told me that no one liked me. Throughout the time he was at school, which was only for my freshman year, he made several threats towards me. This one time while we played hockey in gym class, I was chosen to play on his team as a goalie. As soon as I got into position in front of the goal, he came over by me and said, "If you let them make a goal, I'll kill you." Needless to say, I was terrified, and I tried so hard to make sure that the other team didn't score a goal because I was honestly scared that he was actually going to kill me. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I feared for my life. About 5 minutes into the game, the other team had made a goal. There was just one thing going through my mind: absolute fear. He skated over to me and said, "You know what this means, right?" I just whispered under my breath in a trembling voice, "Yes." As soon as the teacher looked away, he shoved me up against the goalie box and then skated away. Against the goalie box and then skated away. I was kind of relieved, but still feared that something was going to happen in the locker room. Thankfully, nothing happened after class, and after my freshman year, I never saw him again. So, those would be the excerpts from my book that I wanted to read.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds...
What?
I'm getting feedback, echo effect. Not anymore. That's good.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, listening to it, it's one thing. Experiencing it, most definitely is a different thing.
Exactly.
There was if you don't mind, I'd like to say one more thing. I graduated from a school called Shannon High School in California.
Yeah.
In Central California. And I know, talking about bullying, there was this black kid that came to the school. And, it's a very small school. We only have one other black kid in our school system. And, he was really down to earth, really friendly, and then this kid showed up. And,
hey, David, your voice is... David, your voice is very fogged.
Is what?
Is very fogged.
I can't really understand you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I can.
I'm not sure what. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
it sounded like your mouth was like right up to the mouthpiece, and it sounded basically you sounded like this, like that.
Yeah, it was. I was hearing a lot of echoes. Like it was feedbacking to me.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can you hear me
fantastically.
Now? Okay. All right. So what I was saying is that this kid that I think it was my sophomore year, he arrived in our school, came from Los Angeles. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. He came from LA, and he kind of looked like a thug. Like the Bloods and the Crips. He was more of a Blood looking. A Crip guy, and he let us all know that he was a Crip, right?
Yeah.
So he was on my football team, and once in a while he would try to hassle me. And so he and I got into it verbally one time because I was kind of getting sick of his attitude.
Right.
And he ended up confronting me in the bathroom. Okay? Now, he walked in right as I was using the bathroom, standing up, and he started saying things. He said, you dumb Jew and everything else. And you know what I did? I could have cowered down to him, but what I did is I turned around, I zipped up, I stood there and I says, "Let's do it." Either one way. I'm going to get my butt kicked or you're going to get your butt kicked. And I went face to face with him, and he actually said, "Oh, well, no problem, man," and he left.
Wow.
Okay? And I thought I was going to get my butt kicked.
Yeah.
And in the end, he knew that, okay, this guy, he ain't afraid. I was scared out of my mind. I thought, okay, I've gotten injured a few times in fights, but I was ready. I said, you know what, I'm not going to put up with this. In my mind, I went back to Germany. My mom used to say, punch him in the nose and they'll be done, okay? And, my mom, you've met her, right? and she's a little aggressive by nature. So that's what happened to me, and the guy backed off and never messed with me again. You know.
Awesome.
And it was intimidating. I'll tell you that. It was very intimidating.
Yeah.
But I ended up standing my ground. And I was about how old was I? I was 17 at the time. You know, and it's just. But like you, I didn't fit in either because I got there in freshman year. You know, I was 2 years or 3 years prior. I came from Germany. I still tried learning the language, so I became a target. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had to fight my way sometimes to get some peace.
Right. Just so everybody knows, there probably is going to be a part 2 to this episode, because we do have more to cover, and we only have like 3.5 minutes left.
Okay, well, we'll do part 2.
Yep, we'll do part 2. But before the episode ends, I'm just going to cover a few cyberbullying statistics, if I have time, all of them, because there's 7 statistics here. So among high school students, 15.5% are cyberbullied, and 20.2% are bullied on school property. And among middle school students, 24% are cyberbullied, and 45% are bullied on school property. The percentages of individuals who have experienced cyberbullying at some point in their lifetimes have nearly doubled, from 18 to 34% from 2007 to 2016, and that kind of makes sense because, I mean, the internet has become a lot more popular.
But it's more sophisticated as well.
Right, exactly. 90% of teens who report being cyberbullied have also been bullied offline. 23% of students who reported being cyberbullied notified an adult at school about the incident. Only 40 to 50% of cyberbullying targets are aware of the identity of the perpetrator. Sometimes people literally create fake accounts and hide behind a fake profile just to bully people.
Yep.
And let's see. Those who are cyberbullied are also likely to be bullied offline. So those are all the statistics that we're going to cover in this episode.
Okay.
And we got a lot more statistics to talk about with each different kind of like with different kinds of bullying. Also, different reasons why people are bullied when it comes to like race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, and stuff like that. We got much more to talk about when it comes to that. We got about a minute 20 left. So, David, is there anything that you want to quickly say in this first part 1 before we wrap it up for part 2?
Certainly. As you were listing the statistics, I do remember reading that in middle school is kind of like the worst case scenario for anyone to go through, because that's where most of the bullying is done. And that and it sounds correct with your statistics, because in high school it was a lot smaller percentages.
Yeah, I was still slightly after freshman year. It was pretty much all done. But high school it was still there a little bit, but dropped significantly.
Correct. As I said, between 6th and 8th grade, you have a lot of the bullying happening right then and there.
Yeah.
And it's very unfortunate. My daughters went through it themselves in middle school, and Kayla, my oldest, was actually severely bullied.
Right.
And I got to the point where I was getting really frustrated.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that in next week's episode, because we have 15 seconds left.
Okay.
Just quickly, I'm going to plug Facebook.com/The Social Factor Podcast. You can go on there and like us and get a bunch of updates and stuff like that. So thank you for listening tonight. We'll see you next week with part 2 of bullying.
God bless.